Paul Andrews. I am one of the chapter educators with Triangle Rabbits. Um, I had given this presentation in 2018 at one of the Bun Fests along with Linda, and because we've taken our rabbits on vacation before, and we thought it's a good idea to talk over the issues with doing that, and when you should, when you shouldn't. It was not originally a well-attended presentation. We had a couple of people there, probably 2 or 3 people there who were interested, but looks like a lot of people are interested this time. So my presentation is called Vacay with the Bunneh. You can thank Astrid for coming up with that title. What I'm going to go over today is, first and foremost, taking your rabbits with you on vacation. Should you take them? How you're going to travel? Where you're going to stay? Those kind of issues. I'm going to also cover a short section on evacuating for disasters with your rabbits, which is kind of an important thing. We're going to enter hurricane season here in North Carolina in a couple of months. It's good to start thinking about that if that needs to be done. And also, what are your options for not taking your bunny on vacation? So first and foremost, let me go over a couple of disclaimers, or 3 disclaimers here on this presentation, that if we mention any vacation rental companies or hotel chains, that doesn't constitute any endorsement by Triangle Rabbits or the House Rabbit Society. Mention of any rental or hotel pet policies doesn't guarantee that they're not going to change their policies in the future. So if somebody took the Dragon Rabbit the week before and destroyed the hotel or something, they may change their policy at a moment's notice. Also, mention of any kind of pet sitters or boarding facilities doesn't constitute any kind of endorsement by any organization involved here, Triangle Rabbits or HRS. So, should you take your rabbit on vacation with you? Well, there's a few things to consider in deciding to do so. First off, what is your rabbit's personality? Are they too timid for it? Are they going to be really shy or scared when you get to where you're going? Do they travel well? Does it look like they're car sick when they're sitting in the back seat there in their carrier? Are they just going to be terrified by the travel? So please do consider them first and foremost. You also have to decide for yourself how you feel about whether the rabbit is with you or at home. You may feel it's better that when you take them with you, they're safe because you're watching them. You know what to do for your rabbit if there's a problem. And that's certainly a valid point, to consider. But you could also have the situation where you might be a little bit worried about whether they're going to be safe with you at the destination. And that's going to, of course, depend on where you're going. Are you going to a rental house? Are you going to a hotel where there could be staff coming in to clean the room during the day and they're sitting in their pen or whatever you have set up for them? And you've also, if you have Dragon Rabbit, you'll have to be worried about the hotel staff, safety. That's another story. So also, the other real big one to consider are the health concerns for your bunny. Can they handle a long trip? Are they healthy enough? Are there going to be concerns, on the road? Can they travel by plane if you're doing so? I wouldn't recommend doing this. If you can avoid, some airlines will allow you to take the rabbit in the cabin with you in a carrier, as long as it fits under the seat. Other airlines are going to make you check the animal, and well, usually that goes okay. I've heard stories that sometimes people have gotten animals back in worse condition than they gave them to the airline. So you really don't know how the baggage handlers are going to treat your animal. Are their veterinary needs going to be met, if you take them with you? If you leave them with a pet sitter, for instance, they have access to your vet because you've left them be. information if something happens. Whereas if you take them with you, you should do some checking before you go about, in the area you're gone. Are there going to be an emergency vet or somebody who could see a rabbit if they get sick? This, by the way, picture on the right here is at a beach house we rented several years ago. This is one of our former rabbits, Huckleberry. She took to sunning herself in the master bedroom, and she actually loved the trip because she was a rabbit we kept in a different part of the house where we're at home, upstairs, where we'd have to go upstairs to visit with her and play with her because we had a downstairs rabbit that didn't get along with her. So when we took them on vacation, she was up on the main floor and she'd run into the master bedroom. And in the afternoon, there'd be the sun streaming in through the big window. And she just loved sitting there and sunning herself. And she'd have it arranged so the shade would just block her eyes. It was kind of funny. So how are you going to travel? Are you traveling by car? The things to consider, are you going to take a single day trip to get to where you're going, or is it going to be a multi-day trip? Those are two very different situations, because obviously a multi-day trip, you're going to have to stay overnight somewhere on the way and make sure everybody's okay with the rabbit being there along the way. Single day trip, you may still need to stop and get lunch and stuff like that. So consider the rabbit's comfort and safety on the way. Are you going to have enough space for their stuff in the car? You can see these pictures on the right demonstrate my collapsible cage for Leo and Eli. I'm unbolting it in the one picture. And we have Eli exploring his collapsed pen, which collapses into two pieces. It's hinged. And on the bottom right, that's a Toyota Prius loaded with all their stuff and our stuff, and about half of it is theirs. Our suitcases are underneath those two collapsed pieces there. We have a couple of litter pans in there. We have all their toys and supplies that we thought they would need, along with some of the food we were taking. In this particular case, we were going to the mountains. So along the way, you're going to want to consider rabbits' temperature and comfort. If you're doing a summer vacation, you have to be concerned about the temperature in the car if you have to stop to eat or use the rest area or whatever. It can get over 100 degrees very quickly in a car in North Carolina in the summer. I've personally done some measurements in the car, not for that purpose, but if it's above 90 degrees outside, it will get to 120 pretty easily in the car. But 100 degrees is reachable in about 5 to 10 minutes on a hot summer day. So rabbits hate to be over 85 degrees. So that is a real concern for traveling in the summer in this area. And consider when you're stopping to eat. You might have to do things if you don't usually stop for drive-throughs. You prefer to go in and eat at a restaurant or whatever. That's going to be a problem if you're traveling with the rabbits. You might want to consider stop using the drive-through so you keep the AC going the whole time and keep your rabbits comfortable. Don't let them steal French fries or anything from you. They're not supposed to eat that. Traveling by airplane. Here are the things you want to consider for that. Can the rabbit fly in the cabin with you? That's sort of important because you know what's going on with your rabbit all the time if they're doing that. What airline, you might want to ask the individual airline you're using, what are the policies that they have about animals traveling? There's been a big, kind of uproar a couple of years ago about flying with service animals. So you've got to consider they may have changed some of their policies about that. They may not be good with certain animals traveling. Some airlines might even make you buy the Bunneh seat. That doesn't necessarily even mean that they're going to let you fly with the rabbit in that seat, I guess. And you also want to make sure your rabbit is confined so they don't rip a hole in the flotation device, which is the seat cushion. So consider that. And also, will the rabbit's sheer cuteness prevent the plane from taking off? Always a concern. Um, One of the things that I would say about traveling by air is I prefer never to have the experience of having to fly with a pet, just because I'd be afraid that if I got to the airport, they're going to say, well, we're full with pets, or we don't want your pet in the cabin. We're going to have to stick them underneath. And then what do? You just showed up for your flight. If something like that happens, I'd be afraid of that. Or in the unlikely event you had to evacuate the aircraft, they say leave everything. Could you leave your pet? You wouldn't want to do that. You would obviously try to break the rules and take your pet with you. So you don't want to end up in a situation like that. Okay, so where are you going to stay? The one option is staying with friends or relatives. This is a picture of a house in the mountains we had rented. Uh, are your friends or relatives gonna have space for the rabbit? Is there a place to set up their pen? Do they like rabbits? Do they have allergies to certain animals that you might want to know about ahead of time? And finally, are there other pets that they have in the house that could be either a danger to your rabbit or your rabbit's going to annoy? Like we had a relative who had a cat, and when we'd visit, we took our rabbits, and our one rabbit at the time really loved cats. Whiskers was real. He was a little black mini Rex, and he was really interested in pet cats. And the cat that my in-laws had at the time was annoyed by him, didn't really know what to make of him, thought he might have thought he was an alien or something. So consider that with whether or not you should take your pets to your friends or relatives. So if you're staying in a rental home or a cabin, is it pet friendly? Make sure their pet policy allows pets to come, and also investigate the exact rental place that you're getting to make sure that it's within the policy of that specific house as well. If you're doing a VRBO, especially, this can be an issue. You should always ask specifically about your rabbits. Do they consider rabbits pets? There's a lot of rental companies who will have things like dogs only listed on certain houses. That's because the owner might be allergic to cats. They may waive the thing about rabbits because they may be like, they might have to ask the owner, is this okay? We've had that happen a couple of times where we had a couple ideas in mind for a place to stay, and we've asked like two of them, can you check with these owners? Will they allow you to have rabbits? One owner will come back, no, we don't consider anything except the dog. And then the other one will be like, hey, yeah, fine, that's great, as long as they don't destroy my house. So consider that. Do they charge a pet fee? Interestingly, we had one rental company, as far as I remember, had a pet fee per pet. We were honest with them and said we were bringing 2 rabbits, and they considered it one because they considered them a caged pet. So, you might get a break on it. It depends on the place. And do try to be honest with the rental companies when you do this. We have actually had to, for the place we stay in the mountains, we put down on the actual lease, they wanted every pet's name, their weight, and their ages. So, or their species rather, their name, weight, and species. And we put it down and had no problem with it. Do they have a weight limit on pets? Generally not a problem with rabbits. If you have a pair of maybe continental giants or something, you might want to be concerned about the weight limit, but my rabbits are 4.5 pounds each roughly. So not really usually a problem. And they do limit the number of pets. A lot of them do have a 2-pet limit. So consider that, please. So following on to where we're going to stay, if you're staying in a hotel, make sure the rooms look like they might have space to set up your rabbit, so you're not tripping over the rabbit. One time we stayed in, we'll talk about evacuation in a couple minutes. We stayed at a place that upgraded us to a suite when we had rabbits with us, and it was great. Rabbits had some fun, and we weren't tripping over their enclosure the whole time. Are they pet friendly? We have talked to hotels and they usually consider a dog or a cat a pet. And often they only have certain rooms that they'll allow a pet into. Um, Basically, they often will, talk to the manager and see if it's okay. So yeah, that it can work out really well sometimes. And do they charge a pet fee? It's important. You don't want to be sneaking in the back with the carrier and then get caught on camera bringing the pet to your room just to avoid a pet fee. Please, please try to be honest with them and leave them with a good impression. And again, I have a little statement there on the slide about whatever you're going to do, it is important to leave a good impression with the landlord, or a property manager or hotel staff. And we want to make sure that rabbits are given the same status and respect as other pets in the future. It seems like in our society, they really think dogs and cats when you talk about pets. So, we want people to start getting a good impression about rabbits. And so we can all, keep our rabbits safe during any conditions and be able to take them with us. Here's a couple of picture slides to end this part of this presentation. We have in the upper right, that's Leo and Eli. Those are our current rabbits. Leo is the gray and white one, and Eli's the black and white one. This is on the left side is one of the mountain rentals that we did. Leo is out playing. You see, we brought our own carpets and towels with us, which is a good idea. Eli's in the pen in the background there. They will run, we let them run on the carpets that are already there as well. We just supervise them. We put a little white fence, one of those things you buy at PetSmart or whatever, around the couch because Leo he's helpful. He's basically helpful. He will clean under the couch, all the dust bunnies and cobwebs if you let him. We don't want him to do that. So think of those kind of things. He'll come out really gross from under the couch. So yeah, Eli, you can see there's next to where Eli is in the back, there's a spare bathroom there. You can see the faucet from the tub. We discovered him licking the toilet. So, consider where he's going to go explore when you take him to a house that he's not familiar with. He really enjoys plumbing. Maybe he was a plumber in his last lifetime. He also went behind the hot water heater there, which we had to put an end to because we didn't know what was dangerous back there. On the right side, on the bottom, you see a different house we set up their pen in. I took this from the loft. Again, you can see the fence kind of wrapping around the couch to make sure that Leo wouldn't go under and clean. You see, brought a couple of towels and stuff and their toys. They have a little wicker tunnel there, and we brought their little maze haven, which is an official Binky Bunny maze haven, not one of the knockoffs. Just had to throw that jab in. And then their cage is fully set up there with the door open where they can play when we're supervising them only. These mountain houses tend to have a lot of wood, so watch all the wood surfaces so that they don't, the house doesn't get left in worse condition than you brought them, because owners might get mad about that. And then here's the other slide is Leo up on the hearth at the one house. The fireplace is not running. That has a gas fireplace, and we didn't want to torch Leo. And then Eli on the bottom. Well, I have to introduce a couple of military terms here. So when you bring your rabbits to a new house, something you want to consider when you have a small vehicle is that all their stuff is packed into the vehicle, and then you have these rabbits in a carrier and you got to get them out. So you want to set up a staging area. This is their staging area with the little wire fence, and we got them out of the car first when we deployed there. The rabbits deployed to this house, so put their litter pan in there, let them out to have some breathing room while we bring the whole rest of their setup in and get it set up. This way they don't have to sit in their carrier for extra time because they don't really want to be in it in the first place. And then when you're redeploying home, you want to set up the staging area again when you're leaving. So you could pull the rabbits out, put them in the staging area while you're collapsing all of their stuff and packing it back in the car. So this is Leona and Eli in the staging area. I don't remember whether it was coming or going. So that's the segment about vacationing with your rabbits, and we can discuss that more in a minute. Next, I'm going to talk briefly about how to evacuate for a disaster with your animals, because I think that's an important travel nuance here. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. Now, why would I be showing a hurricane about to strike Louisiana rather than North Carolina? We're all in North Carolina here. Well, this is Hurricane Katrina. That happened on August 29th, 2005. It was about to make landfall in Louisiana. And the big issue with Katrina, it exposed the problems with people handling pets during an emergency response. New Orleans was struck pretty hard and flooded. People didn't evacuate because they were told, evacuate now, no, you cannot take your pets with you. So as a result, a lot of pets died. People died because they wouldn't evacuate their pets. There were a lot of stray animals around after that. They caused some real problems down there. And FEMA and Congress decided to do something about this. So a little while later, 2006, they passed what's called the PETS Act. And PETS is an acronym. It stands for Pets Evacuation and Transport Standards Act of 2006. And this is an add-on to what's called the Stafford Act, which I won't go into in depth, but I'll just tell you that it governs emergency response and how FEMA operates and you know how funding gets distributed for emergencies. So the PETS Act, being an add-on to this, said that state and local emergency plans have to cover both people and animals and service animals, people with pets and service animals. It allows financing for animal emergency preparedness, and it also provides for the rescue, care, and shelter and the essential needs of any pets and other service animals. And maybe even, I'd have to look, but it might actually cover, you know, agricultural animals as well. So I can throw at the end, I'll throw in a couple of links so that you can actually read the PETS Act if you're so interested in reading like legal stuff, and also a link to a FEMA slideshow about the PETS Act if you want to really delve into it. I will read you this definition from that FEMA presentation about what they define as a pet. They define a household pet as a domestic animal such as a dog, bird, rabbit, rodent, or turtle that is traditionally kept in the home for pleasure rather than commercial purposes, can travel in commercial carriers, and be housed in temporary facilities. I don't know why they left out cats. I'm sure they meant to put cats in. Don't worry, cat people. So it does also say that household pets do not include reptiles except for turtles. So no, you cannot bring your venomous snakes with you or anything. It does not include amphibians, fish. So no, don't bring your 200-gallon fish tank. Insects and arachnids, no giant hairy spiders, sorry. And farm animals, including horses, are not considered household pets as well. And animals kept for racing purposes. So that's FEMA's definition, essentially, of what considered a household pet. Here's just a few quick, we're second to last slide here. So bear with me just a couple more minutes. Evacuating with your rabbit. As it is with people, it's also important to plan for evacuation with your pet. Note that shelters are supposed to accept your animals according to the PETS Act. There was a shelter in North Carolina during Florence that I noticed because of something I looked at on the news that was saying dogs only. I don't know that this is legal. If I were evacuating there with a rabbit, I'm not going to name the shelter, but if I were going to evacuate there with a rabbit, I would probably try to challenge them based on the PETS Act, or I would just not go there and try to drive 200 miles away. So hotels, on the other hand, are not required to allow your pets during a disaster. They have their own policies. We had a hotel that we stayed at we evacuated from the Raleigh area unnecessarily, but it was a good test of the evacuation system for our rabbits. We had a hotel in Virginia we stayed at during Florence, and they sort of waived the requirements about their pet policy. They allowed us 3 instead of 2 because we had a foster with us. So Florence was on the way. At the time we said we better make a reservation. And we didn't know what it was going to do. So we made the reservation. When it looked like it was going to do more just wobbling around and rain a lot, we decided we're still going to do this just in case, because it was this one was pretty unpredictable looking. And we decided, let's just do it because it'll be a good test of evacuating with 2 rabbits plus a foster. And we took Maurice with us, which was our foster rabbit at the time. He was our half lop rabbit, white, red-eyed white half lop. All 3 did pretty well. So plan where to go in advance. Have ideas when the hurricane is, if it's going to look like it's going to do this based on the forecast. Do I go to the northeast or the northwest or the southwest? Depending on what it's going to do, sort of have ideas in mind. When it gets close enough, I would make a reservation and go with it rather than waiting before it's too late. Talk to your manager. First, another idea is to talk to your emergency management people in the state before you have a disaster and find out what they say about evacuating with your rabbit. And, sort of make them aware that people have these pets so that they take that into account when they're planning for shelter space and everything. Take the basics for your rabbit. Make sure you have all your food, enclosure, hay, litter pans, and water. Any medications, veterinary supplies that you take, everything they're going to need wherever you're going. Make sure all of that's together. And I can't really express enough to consider evacuating early. Don't wait for a mandatory evacuation order, especially if you're down by the coast. Roads are going to back up. It's going to be harder to get a place that's going to take your pets. If you get out a couple days ahead, it's always better. And you could call ahead and make a nice reservation when not everybody has done so already. You might have to drive 200 miles to find a place, but be willing to do that just for your pet safety and your safety. The couple of pictures here is this little black foster rabbit that we had is emphasizing that we've only got a few minutes to get the heck out of here, on the bottom right. And on the top right, that is our pre-deployment inspection occurring by Leo. He's looking at the portable pet home, which is a foldable tent-like structure that works pretty well for a lot of rabbits. He's inspecting it. It did barely pass inspection. He said we'll live with it for a couple of days. And then we took that and kept Leo and Eli in there during a 3-day hotel stay for Florence. And we have 2 of these, and we kept Maurice in the other one. Of course, they got to come out for play in the hotel room because they actually upgraded us in the hotel and had a nice suite. And Leo loved it. He was playing, had fun. If you must shelter in place, remember that the power may be out. So rabbits don't like to be hot, and hurricane season is hot. Or it tends to be hot. 85 degrees is about the limit of what rabbits are going to actually be okay with. Keep your cell phones charged and emergency radio. That goes for any, even human disaster stuff. Have plenty of fresh water, food, hay for your rabbit, so you don't run out during the disaster. You don't know how bad things are going to be. And then also know what rooms in your house are safest. We had a tornado warning, and I stuffed 2 rabbits in a carrier plus foster rabbit in a carrier, stuffed them in the little bathroom downstairs, which is the most interior room we have. And I got in there, had the laptop with the WRAL radar on it, sitting on top of the toilet, and stuffed myself in there with the rabbits to be safe during the possibility of a tornado. So, consider that type of thing as well. So that's the second section about emergency response. And finally, I just want to talk about not taking on this final slide, not taking your rabbits on vacation. So consider family and friends as an option. They might, I've known a lot of people who like my rabbits or whatever. They're willing to watch them sometimes, or I don't recommend letting somebody watch your rabbits that doesn't know what they're doing. I don't recommend the children from next door that you don't know watching your rabbits as like a rabbit sitter. It's just probably not going to go well. Make sure they know how to feed your rabbit properly. All the hay and how much they should eat per day, and that they absolutely need water. And make sure they know how to react in an emergency. I always have the Vic Avenue emergency vet thing stuck on my refrigerator anyway, so I make sure pet sitter is going to know how to find emergency care if needed. And you also want to give them your main vet. And they should also know how to contact you in case something does happen and they do have to take it in. You can talk to the vet, and so you can be in charge of the rabbit's care to some extent. Professional pet sitters, try to make sure they're rabbit savvy. This is sort of problematic in the Triangle. There are only a few pet sitters in the area that consider rabbits pets, really. You can look on the Triangle Rabbits website for this, and so that you can see if they're able to do that. I've had a lot of pet sitters kind of say, no, we won't watch rabbits. And also, do they have the info they need if something happens? Again, same thing as a friend watching the rabbits. And then finally, boarding. The problem with boarding them, they're not going to be in a familiar place. They don't like vet offices. Vet offices will do boarding a lot. And I guess there are probably other options. You'd have to find them, but they're not going to be a familiar place. They're probably not going to be as comfortable. They're not going to be with people they know. At least at home, they're familiar. So basically, we've covered traveling with your rabbits for vacation, traveling with rabbits in an emergency, and leaving your rabbits at home while you go on vacation. So I'll take any questions at this point. I'll probably stop sharing my screen now, and then I'll post a couple of links to those things I said I would in the chat in a second.